Welcome to 21st Sports Recap and Reaction for the Baltimore Ravens at the Cleveland Browns in their Week 12 matchup played November 30th, 2015 as these two AFC North rivals went at it on Monday Night Football. Of course, the Ravens without Flacco, without Forsett, without Steve Smith, without Terrell Suggs, and the Browns had just recently re-demoted Johnny Manziel, and so McCown was starting back under center for the Browns. And this is a wild game, and it was bookended by big special teams plays by the Ravens. Of course, John Harbaugh used to be a special teams coach, and his teams usually do play pretty well on the special teams. And we're going to go over the scores and the stats and give our breakdown and analysis for this game. And starting off in the first quarter, just over 5 minutes into the game, Kaelin Clay ran back a punt 82 yards for the touchdown for Baltimore. Justin Tucker added the extra point, and it was 7-0 Ravens over the Browns. Then with about 4.5 minutes still left in the first, Justin Tucker hit a 49-yard field goal, and it was 10-0 Baltimore over Cleveland. So that was the score at the end of the first quarter. And in the second quarter, the Browns finally got on the board with about 11.5 minutes left before halftime when Travis Coons kicked a 31-yard field goal, and that cut the Ravens' lead to 7 with the score Baltimore 10, Cleveland 3. So now Baltimore would strike back, and they would score a minute and a half later as Matt Schaub would march them down, and he hit Javoris Allen for a 13-yard touchdown pass. Justin Tucker kicked the extra point, and it was 17-3 as the Ravens were now up by 14 points. But the Browns came back. They put together about a 5.5 minute drive, and Josh McCown hit Marlon Moore for a 10-yard touchdown. Travis Coons added the extra point, and it was now a one-score game once again, with Baltimore still in the lead, 17-10. And that was with about 4.5 minutes left to play before halftime. And in the final seconds of the first half, Travis Coons would hit a 21-yard field goal to make it a 4-point game, with the score 17-13, with the Ravens still in the lead, a lead that they had held all game long. So now in the third quarter, the Browns would finally take the lead when Karos Dansby would intercept Matt Schaub and ran it back 52 yards for the pick six. Coons added the extra point, and now Cleveland was up by 3 with the score 20-17. And that was less than 3 minutes into the second half. But then with about 5.5 minutes left still in the third quarter, Schaub responded from that pick six, putting together a long drive. It was almost 7 minutes, but he capped it off with a touchdown to Kamar Aiken. Aiken making a nice play, stretching out to get the touchdown for the 15-yard touchdown. And with the extra point by Tucker, Baltimore was back in the lead with the score 24-20. So that would be the score after the third quarter. Then in the fourth quarter, about 6 minutes into the quarter, Justin Tucker hit a 35-yard field goal to put the Ravens up by 7 with the score 27-20. And that was with just over 9 minutes left to play. And that was the result of an 8-minute drive. So a couple of long drives by the Ravens here in the second half, as they ate up most of the time in the third and going into the fourth. And so now, deep into the fourth quarter, before that, right around that, McCown would leave the game and Austin Davis would end up coming in. So Austin Davis was under center for Cleveland, and he would end up bringing them down the field, and he would end up getting a big play to Travis Benjamin as he was able to avoid the rush, and Travis Benjamin caught the ball in stride, and he was about the 10-yard line, and he got into the end zone for a 42-yard touchdown. Coons added the extra point, and this game was tied at 27 with less than 2 minutes left to play. So less than 2 minutes left to play, and the Ravens would get the ball back, They would start off on their own 20 after the touchback, but they would end up going 3 and out on this possession. They actually had a 4th and 1 where they lined up, but they were trying to get the Browns to jump off sides. They didn't, and so it was a delay of game penalty. And so they would end up punting the ball from their own 24, and that was with about a minute and a half left on the clock. So now Cleveland would take over on their own 37 after the punt went out of bounds. So now Austin Davis on 2nd and 10 was sacked by Elvis Dumervil and Jernigan as they combined for the sack, and that made it 3rd and 18, and an incomplete pass would bring out the punting unit as the Browns would go 3 and out. And so they ended up punting the ball back to the Ravens, now with just over a minute still left. And so now the Ravens would take over on their own 38, and Matt Schaub was intercepted by Tramon Williams, the former Green Bay Packer, as he was all over the route. It was a hook route, and he ended up running that route better than the receiver, as he was just perfectly read that one. And so he intercepted the ball, and that gave the Browns the ball on the Baltimore 46 with 50 seconds left to play. This game tied at 27. So they just needed a field goal to win this one. And so then Davis got it to Hartline, and he picked up 6 yards. But the Cleveland Browns, although they had 2 timeouts, they went from having 50 seconds on the clock to letting the clock get all the way down to 18 seconds. And then Davis ended up having to scramble, and he didn't get out of bounds. Instead of getting out of bounds, he ended up sliding right next to the sideline. And so the clock didn't stop. The clock kept on moving. And so Cleveland had to burn a timeout there. When it was very poor clock management by the Cleveland Browns. First off, letting all that time burn off the clock when they could have called a timeout after first down. And they let all the time burn out. Austin Davis, then instead of going out of bounds, he slides, keeps the clock moving, which meant they had to burn their second timeout. And so now it was a first down, but there was only 9 seconds left in the fourth quarter, and it looked like we might be going to overtime. Of course, they were on the Baltimore 33, so at this point, it would have been a 50-yard field goal. But then they ended up, the next play, they set up for the field goal. They handed off to Johnson, and Duke Johnson, they tried to get it more in the center, but he didn't really get too far over from the hash as they were on the right hash, and they ended up getting in a little bit towards the center, but not too much, and they were forced to take their final timeout with just 3 seconds on the clock. So now the Ravens would also take a timeout as they were going to ice the kicker, as Travis Coons was coming out to attempt, it's like a 51-yard field goal, as it was kind of right in between with where the ball was placed. And so he came out to attempt this 50-plus yard field goal from the 33, is where the line of scrimmage was, as there was just 3 seconds left on the clock. It was second down, so if they had managed the clock better, they would have had a chance to move the ball closer. But here he is on this kick with a low trajectory, and Brent Urban ends up getting his hand on the ball. And this is his first NFL start, his first game he's ever played, of course, the banged-up Ravens. And he gets his hand on the ball. It ends up in the hands of Will Hill, and Will Hill runs it all the way back for the touchdown. Will Hill scores on a 64-yard return of a blocked field goal as time expires. The walk-off touchdown for the Ravens in an insane game. And they lined up for the extra point because that's the rule, but they just took a knee. So they ended up ending the game taking a knee on a special teams extra point play. And so the final score, Baltimore 33, Cleveland 27, in a wild finish. And as I said, this game was bookended by big special teams plays by the Ravens. They're now 4-7 on the season, 2-4 on the road. And the Browns now fall to 2-9 on the year. They've only won one game at home this year. They're 1-4 in the dog pound. So Cleveland in the basement. And actually, if the Browns had won this game, these two teams would have been tied for last. Instead, Baltimore's in third place there in the North, of course. It's been a rough season, lots of injuries for the Ravens. Although really a big reason that they've been struggling is because of Tressman. Not really the best offensive coordinator, but they got a win here. They got actually a pretty decent defense. Elvis Somerville is one of the better pass rushers in the league. Jernigan's actually pretty solid as well. Will Hill coming up big with that play on the special teams, getting that blocked field goal. And they asked him afterwards, when did he know that a touchdown was a possibility? He said, as soon as the ball was in my hands, I was just praying for one block, and I knew I could get there. And he did. He made an incredible play, and the Ravens get the win with Matt Schaub under center. And I do believe that's the first time that John Harbaugh has won a game with a quarterback other than Joe Flacco. But the Cleveland Browns, they just continue to struggle. Horrible coaching, horrible clock management there at the end of the game. Bad play calling for the Browns. They've got a lot of talent on their team. Their coaching staff is just horrible. And I mean, it's the thing is when you have, musical chairs, a coaching carousel just always rotating with another coach, then that's what kind of happens. I thought they should have stuck with Jasinski. When he was the coach, they lost a lot of games, but they were within one score. Whereas the Browns, they did lose this one within one score, but they've lost a lot of games by double digits this year, and that was actually kind of a big surprise that it was as close a game as it was. Matt Schaub was 20 for 34 with 232 passing yards, 2 touchdowns, and 2 interceptions. Javorius Allen had 12 carries for 55 yards and 4 receptions for 29 yards and a touchdown, giving him 84 total yards in the game. West had 7 carries for 37 yards, and Kamar Aiken had 6 receptions for 80 yards and a touchdown. Givens had 1 reception for 48 yards. And for the Browns, Josh McCown was 21 of 38 for 212 passing yards and a touchdown before leaving the game early in the fourth. Austin Davis was 7 for 10 for 77 yards and a touchdown as he would come off the bench in relief of McCown when he left due to the injury. Duke Johnson had 7 carries for 27 yards. He also had 5 catches for 23 yards, giving him 50 total yards in the game. And Gary Barnridge, 7 catches for 91 yards. Travis Benjamin, 6 catches for 90 yards and a touchdown. And Brian Hartline, 8 receptions for 74 yards. When we look at the kickers, Justin Tucker was perfect, 2 for 2 on the field goals, 3 for 3 on the extra points. Travis Coons, 2 for 3 on the field goals, 3 for 3 on the extra points. The one field goal he missed was the one blocked and ran back for the touchdown. When we look at the defense, Elvis Somerville, 1.5 sacks in this game. Jernigan had a half sack, so they had combined for that sack there late in the game. And then for the Browns, Karos Dansby had an interception, which he did return for a touchdown. Tramon Williams also had an interception late in the game as well. And then we look at the team stats, 21 first downs for the Browns, 16 first downs for the Ravens. On third down, the Browns were 4 of 15, 26% conversion rate, and the Ravens 2 of 11, just 18% on third down. Both teams went for it twice on fourth down, and they ended up converting both times 100% on fourth down for the Ravens and the Browns. Really, total net yards, 338 for Cleveland, 336 for Baltimore, and on the ground, the Ravens netted 104. And the Browns netted 63. Now, through the air, Cleveland netted 275 as they allowed 2 sacks for 14 yards lost. And the Ravens did not allow any sacks in this game. They netted 232 through the air. We look at the penalties in this game, 7 against Baltimore for 50 yards. Just 2 penalties against the Browns for 15 yards. And in the red zone, the Ravens were 2 for 3, 66%. And the Browns 1 for 3, 33% in the red zone. In time of possession, 30 minutes, 30 seconds for Cleveland, 29 minutes, 30 seconds for Baltimore. So it ended up being a pretty close game, even though the Ravens were in control early on. They had the lead for the most part until in the second half there. Cleveland ended up taking the lead, but the Ravens took it right back. And then Cleveland, of course, tying the game. And then they had a chance to win it with that field goal, but it ends up going the other way, as that was quite the amazing play by Urban to block it, and especially by Will Hill to run it all the way back for the touchdown. So the Ravens end up winning this one. And so then that actually just improves the Browns' draft position, is really the result of this one. But it's a moral victory for Baltimore, especially for their defense and for their special teams, the way they were able to come up in the big moments in this game and get that win for the Ravens, even being as depleted as they are on both sides of the ball. But let me know what you think in the comments section below. Definitely interested to read your thoughts and opinions. Thank you very much for listening. It is greatly appreciated. I hope you're having a good day and had a great weekend and enjoyed all the sports.